person at the right place at the right time with access to the right tools to really advance the possibilities of understanding damage quickly and assessing its impact. So really excited to have Richard on here today. I've known Richard a long time. We're pretty good friends, and great to see what he's doing now, and hopefully you guys all find it as exciting as I do.
Very good.
Wow, thanks, Chris.
So, Richard, do you want me just to...
$5.
Richard, do you want me to... I'll turn the webinar over to you. Do you have slides or something to show? I'll be glad to turn the webinar over to you if you want.
Yes, please.
All right. You're now presenter. Okay. We're good to go.
Okay, are you seeing the screen with the
Yep.
PowerPoint around it, or the other screen?
We're seeing the screen with, you got a picture of the beach and it says Geospatial Intelligence Center. Got it.
All right, that's good. All right, let's run through this. We'll go pretty quick. Yeah, so thank you again, Chris, for that introduction. And yeah, we've been at this a long time, it seems. And so I was with the state of Florida, Division of Emergency Management, for around 12 years, and in the state of Florida for 12 years in their environmental protection before that. And moved over to this organization just last November, so coming up on a year now. Seems like that's crazy. It's gone that fast. And so the group I'm with now is the Geospatial Intelligence Center is a partnership between the National Insurance Crime Bureau and the private sector company Vexcel. So Vexcel is known for making cameras to fly and acquire high-resolution imagery, and the Ultramap cameras and the Ultramap software to process that imagery. And they're also known for having been bought by Microsoft. When Microsoft wanted to do virtual, Bing maps for Bing, they just went out and bought a company to do it. And a few years ago, Vexcel spun back out of Microsoft as its own company, still making cameras over in Austria, and wanted to grow markets for aerial photo collection. And they partnered with the National Insurance Crime Bureau to do that. The National Insurance Crime Bureau itself is a not-for-profit consortium of insurance companies dedicated to sharing information amongst the insurers and fighting fraud. So the two of those came together and said, let's create this thing. Geospatial Intelligence Center was the name they came up with, and focus on programs and using GIS and aerial photographs to help the insurance industry. So to do that, we have a couple of programs: a Blue Sky National Imagery Program, where we're collecting high-resolution aerial photographs across the United States; a Disaster Response Program, or Gray Sky Program, and that's where I come in as their Director of Catastrophe Response. And how do we further develop tools and analytics with that data to help decision makers? The consortium of the GIC has a lot of your major insurers, and we're working closely, working very hard to get a couple more in here, including some really big names. Yes? Did someone say something?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So numerous insurers are members, and this is growing every day. Big ones and some smaller ones as well. Like you see, Citizens is, just for the state of Florida. So let's look at our Blue Sky program with our national imagery. We do the entire U.S. coast to coast in high resolution imagery at 20 centimeter resolution on a 2-year collection period is our goal there. We also do our urban or metro maps, and this is ultra high resolution imagery at 7.5 centimeter resolution, repeated annually across the urban areas. And we also, with that data, use not only the nadir, the straight down view of the aerial imagery, but also the oblique images, so you can view the sides of the buildings as well. So yeah, vertical imagery, oblique imagery. We also can produce digital surface models models, terrain modeling, and for 3D visualization from the imagery that we collect. So we're not flying LiDAR sensors, but from our the processing and the camera, the overlap, we can go out and do old-fashioned digital surface models for terrain. Focusing now more on the disaster response, my part of this. We try to respond to every major catastrophe in the United States. The imagery is available to members within 24 hours of collection. That's our service level agreement. We get the planes down wherever they're flying. We get data units shipped to our processing here out in Denver, and we work all night and get the data processed and available online. We do provide free access for first responders and emergency management, really all levels of government, and also access to our GIC insurance members, of course. The Blue Sky products have really high specifications on the resolution, free, no smoke, that kind of stuff. Obviously, we can't do that during the gray sky responses. We relax the quality of the images to turn around and get them as fast as possible. Here's the 2018 Gray Sky Calendar, an example of several of the storms that the events we responded to. And you can see some floods and a lot of wildfires and tornadoes, and of course hurricanes. 2017, the organization also did Hurricanes Harvey and Irma, which I'll talk about in a little bit. 2019 calendar, what we've been responding to for our insurance members, and not a lot there in June and July, and even into August and September. We did respond to both Tropical Storm Barry and Hurricane Dorian. For Hurricane Dorian, I actually hit the road and went back to the Florida Emergency Operations Center and spent several days there, and then followed the storm up the coast, also stopping in at the South Carolina Emergency Operations Center, and eventually spending a couple of days in North Carolina. So we were prepared to fly and respond if needed. But fortunately, the way that storm went, it really avoided major impacts to the United States, just clipping those areas of North Carolina there. And again, partnering with other folks, we knew that NOAA was going to fly those coastal areas that were most impacted by that storm and put the data in public domain. So we decided not to fly anything for Hurricane Dorian in the end. It's been a very busy October with wildfires, Kincaid wildfire being the one we most recently responded to. We also did the Saddle Ridge fire in Los Angeles County and the Dallas tornado, and haven't even had time to update my slide for that because we've been really back-to-back responses for the last 3 weeks. So let's just review looking at the hurricanes from 18 and 19. What did we do? 65,000 square kilometers collected with Hurricane Florence. That was really the first time that the organization partnered directly with FEMA, is now participating on the FEMA remote sensing and GIS coordination calls after these disasters, and was the first time we deployed our Condor wide sensor, a wide area sensor, which really allows you to, it has like an 8-kilometer swath, so you can really, suck up a lot of pixels over large areas with that camera very quickly. Hurricane Michael last year, 85,000 square kilometers collected, processed, and delivered in 3 days. Just an example of the scale and scope of which we're able to ramp up to. Wildfires we mentioned, obviously not as much square kilometers per disaster, but we are turning the data around quickly. We're getting out there with access into the airspace. For example, in this particular image, you can see, there's active firefighting going on. They were setting backfires down the hill from right outside of the picture. But, we're in the space with the responders as soon as we can. And some of the trusted relationships from the National Insurance Crime Bureau, to the state EOCs. My background with the emergency operations is how we get in and leverage those kinds of access to these airspace in these critical times. Like I say, we share the data with a lot of other folks. So, states of Florida, states of California, CAL FIRE, CAL OES, those all have access to the data. We also share with volunteer organizations active in disasters like Red Cross, and of course, military partners, National Guards, and City of Los Angeles is another example of a local partner that we've been working with. So, again, 2017, the hurricane imagery collection. Like I say, Harvey was the first thing they responded to over in Texas. And Ryan Bank, who was the managing director, kind of the founding director of the GIC part of it, was in San Antonio, was in Austin at the EOC, came directly to Tallahassee. I got a call, hey, this guy's coming. He's going to sit next to you, figure out what to do with him. Put him down in the EOC and said, okay, what are you going to do? And he says, we're going to fly, more high-resolution aerial photographs than you've ever seen turned around after a storm and provided to you for free. I said, yeah, you're definitely sitting down. Let's get this done. And so that's how we got to know during Irma, and then also during Michael. Ryan did not come to the EOC, but I was working closely with GIC to get this further imagery collection done over the areas for Hurricane Michael. And it was after that experience that they approached me and with this opportunity to come to work for them. So just a couple of other examples from our 2019 Gray Sky. We flew the Lee County tornado in Alabama. We did a flood out in Sonoma County. I should mention we don't do a lot of floods. Remember that the insurance industry is what is behind this. And so our private sector insurers, they don't have a lot of flood policies. Those, of course, go through the National Flood Insurance Program. So we sometimes do floods just if they're small and easy and quick, but most of the time we're not really chasing floods. We also aren't chasing big windstorms like happened last night for you guys on the East Coast. We really need highly concentrated damages and a lot of impacts to insured structures, residences, and businesses. And that's why tornadoes and hurricanes kind of really get the attention. But, we'll also talk about how we're evolving here at the end of the presentation. One other thing we do is hailstorms, primarily of interest just for our insurance members. That's just an example of the camera that we have that is doing 1.5 centimeter resolution from this particular camera that we have. So we can deploy that when we really need, they had already started using high resolution and ultra resolution as words to describe our products. And I said, well, what do we call this? It's super ultra high resolution, not sure. But we do have those kinds of capabilities as well with some of our camera platforms. All right, tools and analytics. I'm going to run through this pretty quickly. Just that we are partnering. We're not building internally a lot of our own capabilities with machine learning and artificial intelligence. We're really partnering with a lot of other folks who are in that space and, using our imagery to help with doing automated building damage and classification. We have validated some of these results with some of our partners, with our insurance clients, and we are using the aerial collection and detection as a key to respond, to increase the response time for property claims and damage assessments delivered faster than on-the-ground damage assessments, and ultimately speeding the recovery by getting these claims and supporting these policyholders quickly. Here's an example from partnering with Munich Re, and they do this product for us. They go run climatological and meteorological models about damage assessments, and then they'll use our imagery come back in and take these hex bins and better score the actual damage, not just the predicted damage, but the observed damage that comes from this. And we from these like hurricanes, and we are able to share that data back out with our GIC members and other folks who are partners in the Geospatial Intelligence Center. We have a playbook that was created, and in that playbook we talk about activation levels, so that we could throw out terminology that was meaningful to our emergency management partners. We talk about our expectations with data quality and turnaround and communication plans, our monitoring, how we monitor, what are our monitoring levels, what are our thresholds for when we're going to pull the trigger and have a go, no-go decision to respond. We need at least 100 houses, 100 structures destroyed for us to kind of get the aircraft mobilized out there. Just a whole bunch of other ways of how we do our monitoring and responding is encapsulated in the playbook that we can share with GIC members and our public safety stakeholders. A couple examples of map products. This was from last year, Hurricane Michael. I actually made this map in the Florida EOC, and we were able to hand these maps to our search and rescue teams headed into Mexico Beach after that disaster. A lot of hurricanes hit down in South Florida. The teams are in South and Central Florida, the search and rescue teams. They'll deploy out. They don't really see us. It just so happened with Hurricane Michael, they were all coming through Tallahassee on their way to Ground Zero over there in Mexico Beach. And as a result, we were able to have them stop by the state EOC and pick up hard copy maps that they could take out in the field. I produced map books of this imagery over Bay County, and we provided those in a digital format to Florida Power and Light, who was going into Bay County to help through mutual aid restore power in that area. So we were able to get them digital copies of these maps and map books that they could go and hand out to their folks in Bay County. Just examples of how we use that data. Red Cross uses the data. This is in one of their platform. RC View is their geospatial technology platform, using our imagery as backdrop and doing damage assessment themselves for wildfires in California. We worked with, like I said, the Alabama tornado, and we got a lot of data put together quickly for that and made available to both FEMA for their geospatial preliminary damage assessments, and there was a nice article by Ryan Lanclow with ESRI Public Safety writing up about those processes and how our imagery was used. And most recently, this is the contained fire incident map for Sonoma County, and you can see that our imagery is available in there as a backdrop for what they're working on with all of their evacuations and sheltering that are still ongoing for this fire. So that's just a summary of where we are and what we're doing. We're looking to develop further capabilities. Like right now, none of our gray sky efforts are commercialized. If we fly it, we fly it, and if we do, we turn around and give it to our GIC members and to government. We encourage private sector like power providers and other utilities and other infrastructure folks to partner with their EOC at either the local or the state level to have access to our imagery, kind of like what I did getting those map books into the hands of Florida Power and Light last year. I can't go right now and give the imagery to directly to, say, a power provider because we just don't have anything in place to support that kind of an agreement. But we can very easily say, hey, go to your local or state EOC. If they don't know about us, tell them. If we have imagery after this disaster in that area, get them to help you get access to it through whatever the platforms they may be hosting, or can they help you make maps, share credentials. We really aren't monitoring to that level, and get the data out there and get it used to help people with this immediate response and recovery. So that's really all I got. You guys got any questions?
Hey, Richard, this is Dave Jones. One of the things that we talked about, I guess you, Chris, and I talked about is, how can we, create that pipeline to use so we can access this imagery, get it into the All Hazards Consortium dashboards and into GeoCollaborate to be able to share out, so that burden's not on you. We can handle the digital data sharing. Is that something that we can test out?
Yes, we can definitely test it. I'm sorry, did y'all lose me on the webinar? I guess it's all right.
No, we can.
Okay,
we can see it.
All right, my a gremlin in my room attacked, hit a plug behind my computer, and everything went dark for me. Sorry about that. Gremlin being my 10-year-old daughter. Okay. Yeah, we could definitely do a test. If there's something that we want to work together on, let's see what we can do.
Yeah. Hey.
And just call it a test. But then, if we to really operationalize things, I think we need some further efforts in my own organization to mature data sharing agreements and whatnot.
So Richard, this is Tom with the All Hazards Consortium. I think we can definitely help with that. We're also a nonprofit, so maybe the two organizations can help one another. We're doing this with a couple of other organizations as well, so I think there's great opportunity here. This is really great information you guys have. Let me go around the horn for a minute and provide opportunity for questions or comments. So Mark Sikorsky, I'll start just at the top of the line or head down the list. Mark, any thoughts or comments?
My initial thought is usually when you get data at a higher level, it has less details, but this is actually the other way around, in my mind anyway. So, if there's a way to get an agreement, this would be pretty awesome.
Okay. All right, very good. Gene Shear, FEMA, any questions or input? Okay. George Eason, Centerpoint, any comments or questions?
No, I think it looks good. I just don't know if it's enough that we can see the utility infrastructure. I'm looking at it as an access tool so we can see what we can and can't access. But I don't know if there's enough detail there yet that we could use it for utilities.
And Richard, can you just drill into that for a minute? Give Richard, I'm sorry, George, give Richard, if you will, some input on what you'd like to see, and maybe they can take it from there and see what happens.
Well, just specifically on even right-of-ways, not focusing on structures as much, and maybe it's there, just have to dig into the data to see it, so that we could be able to see the utility infrastructure in those rear easements.
So that could be an opportunity for this committee to blend utility infrastructure data with this data. I think Greg McShane, you and I can talk about this, but let's see, Richard, what you have, and if maybe we could add layers, combine layers, if you will. Richard, I see you moving around here.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just going to look at the Kincaid fire and give some example. I guess I don't know where exactly to go for an example. So just
It would take a layer of where the facilities are as an overlay.
right.
Yeah. And George.
And here's some,
and George, that's what
some examples of the clarity of the imagery.
Okay. So George, that's what I'm thinking. It might take another more sensitive layer of infrastructure, unless DHS has that mapped already, so we can avoid any liability issues and so forth. The idea is to map is to put a couple, have it build a use case and have a couple of layers of data. This is pretty good, but I think, Richard, over time, it sounds like you could learn kind of you could adapt what you're looking for. My question was, how soon do you get this? I mean, how soon after an incident? I realize you got to wait for the clouds to part, but how soon do you fly the birds to get the data?
Right. So this imagery was flown on the 29th, and we had it available on the 30th.
Okay.
Late on the evening on the 30th.
Okay.
This is not our highest resolution because our aircraft was still there was a temporary flight restriction in this area, and so the aircraft was flying at over 10,000 feet.
Okay.
This is an example of there was a structure still on fire. This is the Leap Now educational facility. And you can see there's actual, trucks all around.
Yeah.
And this thing is burning. If you wait another day or two, we might have been able to get a little bit lower because of that flight restriction. But with that 10,000 foot flight restriction, we flew at 10,500 to get this imagery.
So you're using high-powered drones to fly these cameras? I assume that's...
Nope, all manned aircraft. Something I meant to mention is that it's all manned aircraft. The cameras themselves are the key to this. The cameras are 150-pound payload at least. And, we spend $1 million on each camera. It's not something you want to go put out for unmanned aircraft.
I got it. Yeah, I thought you might be using a Raptor or something to fly this one. Okay, good.
No.
So Chris McIntosh, this may be an opportunity to blend data layers, but I think George is right. If we could get something for utility damage assessment quick, fast, that's accurate, I think that would move the ball big. But the other point is this could be wonderful for access and other sector missions, right? So outstanding. Let's see, who did I miss?
The key here, the key to you hit the nail on the head, Thomas. If you take what they can provide and then you overlay it with another GIS layer that indicates infrastructure, the combination of the two, and even then overlay it with ground observations, the combination of those three would be really powerful for damage assessment. Imagery by itself is great, but the great thing about the way you construct an information product is putting other layers on top of the imagery that provide context.
Okay.
Right, sure.
Yeah. So, Richard, you folks and the consortium probably need to get on the phone together at some point and talk about how we might help you commercialize part of that or package part of that, right? I think that'd be very helpful. I think the utilities and fuel and transportation sectors would be very interested in this, and it's always it's always a process, right? It's never simple, but we seem to find ways to make it happen. So that's all I can tell you. So good.
We are trying to look at how better can we commercialize the gray sky side. How can we support our states? Like, for example, if we're not just an aerial, we're a camera company and an aerial company. If a state buys our camera and flies it with their DOT or other surveying and mapping within the state, can we then offer that state that we will receive their data units and process them for them and turn them around in that same 24-hour process, so that if the state's flying and we're not, we can still go ahead and make use of the data and share it, and it has value to them because we're handling the processing. We're totally ramped up to support that with a crew out here in Boulder and Denver working. So is that a way that we can also work together? They fly it, send us their data unit, we process it, turn it around, send them back the data unit for their long-term needs, but we all have this immediate map
Yeah.
we can better operate off of.
So-
Those are the other kinds of partnerships we're looking to.
Outstanding, outstanding. Carrie Hicks, are you on with us?
Yeah.
Okay, I know you just jumped on late, and you and I got a webinar in 8 minutes, but I thought I wanted to give you a chance to provide some input back to Richard.
I think this all looks really interesting. I would need to go back and take a look at some of it. I did join in late.
Yeah. So, Richard, I'll make a note to follow up with you, but no, I think Chris and Dave had a really good hunch, and you're filling a gap that we need. At least our stakeholders need, state and commercial entities, right? So, well done, Chris. Chris and Dave, thanks very much for getting Richard on the phone. So, okay, I'm gonna pull back here. Just a reminder. And Richard, I think your contact information I have, so we're good.
All right, thank you very
Okay.
much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Richard. We're going to move our discussion for the ORL tool to next week. Carrie and I have a webinar to jump to. Great information, and I think, Chris, we need to talk how we layer this and maybe bring in critical infrastructure data with Greg and the utilities to start with. But I can see fuel and transportation. There could be a lot of issues with this. Not to mention maybe a better connection to the insurance sector. So excellent. Okay, well, listen, that'll conclude our agenda for today. Next week, we'll pick up our discussion, feedback on this, and our discussion on the ORL tool. So, Carrie, I'll talk with you in a few minutes. For the rest of you, if you're traveling, be safe. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you.